Monday.
It is Monday, guys. And we have a not so familiar face, but familiar because he's done this before. We have Victor Buttato. And you know what?
How you doing, guys? Happy Monday.
We're going to shift you in a little bit.
A little bit.
There you go.
There we go.
We want to get you in the frame.
There we go. Much better.
All right. So what we're going to be talking about today, you have some pretty good topics to go over.
Oh, yeah.
And I always love these things because
real life scenarios.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time out there, so it's a good thing to have that kind of on the ground experience.
Yeah.
And a couple of the way this market's gone, the most recently has been absolutely insane.
The South Shore has been on fire here in Staten Island.
Well, let me get to the topic points. He's ready to fire. But what he's going to be talking about today is offers and like what happens in the process of selling, like what you kind of be
crazy offers.
Yeah, what you're going to be looking for, and like as far as like numbers are concerned, like what you should expect, like when it comes to selling, and then we're going to get into some of the things like how to draw in multiple offers, things like that, even in this situation. And the situation.
That's a situation. Situations.
Because the big thing, before I even get to is that you're going to talk about some of the things that you've kind of encountered.
Well, you touch on how to draw multiple offers.
Right.
Very interesting topic.
Let's start. We're going to keep you on track. We're going to start with the offer situation because recently you just had a sale on
the South Shore on Staten Island. Beautiful.
So go ahead. Get into that one because that's an interesting one.
So we had a hot property here on the South Shore. The whole South Shore is super hot right now here in Staten Island. And this property, within minutes of going live on MLS, phone started blowing up. A lot of interest in the property. So we had multiple showings.
Multiple showings, multiple offers too.
Multiple offers. In fact, here's a funny story that happened there. One of the agents from our office took clients to see the property.
A little bit of story time.
And so the agent shows a property to the clients. They love the house. The agent gets in the car, drives off after the showing, and the buyers remain behind. And what do? They wait for the agent to leave. Now they ring the doorbell. Ding dong. And now they want to put in an offer right then and there directly to my client. It was an all-cash offer, actually.
But she was a little startled.
She was startled because she called me right away. Victor, I have these people in the house. They want to give me cash for my house. I said, what do you mean cash? A bag of cash? What do they want to do? So she's like, well, they're showing me bank statements. I said, look, let them know that you're represented by a realtor. And either, did they show it another agent? Yes. So have them call their agent and the agent can contact me. Or I said, put them on the phone. I said, look, if you want to see the property with an agent, contact your agent and submit the offer.
So when you talk to a seller, I mean, we obviously done this before.
Mm-hmm.
You go into, and this is a very tense marketplace to begin with, right? So it's kind of, you get a lot of people who come on the market, you get a hot house, multiple people are coming in at the same time.
Correct.
And the frenzy begins on a house that somehow seems to set the bar for all bars when it comes to certain types of houses.
Oh, we're going to set the bar with this.
The two-family on the South Shore is always the hottest thing you could find. So the big thing is when just knowing, like, okay, what am I supposed to expect? I go to the house, there's 15 people outside, there's 25 people outside, you have your buyers with you. What do you tell your buyer to make the best offer? What's the plan for them?
Okay, now I see that scenario. A lot of people, it's a hot house. I know there's going to be multiple offers. We need to submit a very strong offer. First thing is, if we're going to go above ask, probably waive appraisal. If we're going substantially higher, right?
And what does waiving the appraisal entail?
Let's use round numbers. Let's just say we're going to purchase a home for $1 million. It's $1 million home, and we say, you know what, we're going to offer $50,000 above ask.
Right.
And so now it's 50,000 above ask, but everything else in the area sold for about $1 million or 980 or so.
Right.
It may not appraise. When the bank comes in, the bank may run comps, and the bank may not approve the appraisal of that home. It won't appraise at that price. That means that the buyer will be on the hook. If they still want the property, they will have to come up with a difference.
Yes.
Okay? If they don't come up with a difference, they're not going to get the mortgage.
So the big thing you would say a good determining factor is almost also too, because you figure conventional 20%. So you'd want more than 20%.
You want a 40-50% down payment on a situation like that.
That's important, guys.
Because anybody can come in and say, I'll give you $75,000 above that. Great. I'll give you, they throw these numbers at you.
Yeah. That's, and we've seen that happen before. And this is what's, if you're out there making offers, and I tell people, like, sometimes they're doing these FHA loans and things like that. When you do an FHA, they have these low down payments, some of them 3.5%, even with concessions built in. What happens is that looks like you could still come in at a higher offer than everybody else, but it will not be considered.
Well, the number looks fancy.
The number looks great, but the parameters mean that there's more risk involved with taking a deal like that it could not.
So I can make an offer for anything,
especially with FHA.
The reality of it being accepted.
Not to say it's bad to use FHA, but
no.
It's just we're taking comparative strength as far as your.
But in that case,
you're getting your offer accepted.
That whole cash offer, solid offer, was full asking price. Mm-hmm. But had my client accepted that offer, she would have left tens of thousands of dollars on the table.
Yes.
Because it was our client, but then another agency brought their buyer, highly qualified buyer, who was willing to pay a lot more.
And that's a key thing when you talk about.
So in the best interest of the client, we went with that highest offer, that higher offer.
It's one of the interesting things with for sale by owner stuff too, is that they assume that because they're going to pay a fee, cost above, because they're like, well, we don't want to list in the MLS, or we don't, we're going to save if you sell it, which, sometimes, in certain instances, there's a, a little bit of difference we can give as far as like, if we find the wrong buyer. But the big thing is that I think the key is that was your own buyer.
Correct.
So you could have taken the deal.
Right.
And obviously we call it double ending,
right.
Which is obviously a better payday, of course. But the
idea is,
in the interest of the client, knew that that's the first and most paramount thing, is that the offer gets presented by everybody so they can make the best decision for their particular circumstance, even for a better number.
Which I explained to my seller, that even if we went into acceptance,
yes,
which we had a scenario where we had a property in acceptance. It wasn't.
Well, this house was in acceptance.
As a matter of fact,
it was.
And then another one came in.
This was a second after it was an acceptance.
So the interesting thing is, so now that you bring up another scenario that took place, we were in acceptance.
Yes, it was in the computer.
Way above asking price, and then another offer came in.
Yes.
Had to go back to the client. The client's like, "Are you sure?" Yes, we're not in contract. We still show until you sign an official contract.
Selling houses now, it's like doing a missing persons report. The first 48 hours will tell you everything you need to know about where this house is going.
Yes, in this market.
In this market, it's like it's such a hit and miss market.
Based on the amount of showings that come in.
Yeah.
So we wound up getting a lot higher for the client. Definitely. We also waived, so we did waive the appraisal.
Yes, they waived inspection as well.
They also waived, they waived inspection. So this now, let's wear the other hat for the buyers out there. In this tough market, when you're dealing with multiple offer situations, bidding wars, highest and best. How do you make your offer stand out from the rest? I had offers that were very high, but they said, no, we want to do an inspection. Well, I have that other offer that they're waiving inspection. So that's more attractive. They're waiving appraisal contingency. They're putting a higher down payment, right? We dissect each and every offer. And then ultimately, we present them to the seller, and the seller chooses the best. It's not necessarily the highest offer, but the best offer.
The best terms is key.
The best terms.
You know, you want to see that the terms of your offer are actually making sense for you, because I think that at the end of the day, if the terms sometimes are better, you know, look, if it's an all cash deal, the terms definitely.
It's a quicker closing.
No
appraisal.
Less paperwork involved. The lawyers don't have to do quite as much because you have, you know, as far as
there's no bank involved.
There's no bank involved, and the bank is a third party in every transaction. So it's you, the buyer, seller, and the bank, three parties. When it turns to two, it's obviously a little bit quicker.
Speaking of cash,
in New Jersey, it's fast though.
New
Jersey is definitely faster than New York. New York is so.
New York,
so slow.
We're looking at 60 to 90 days. I love New Jersey. Within 30 to 45 days, they close. As a matter of fact, the laws are different in Jersey too.
Yeah,
it's on or before, which means on that date or before. In New York, it's on or about, which means within 30 days. So it's a little different. It's more involved in New York to get paid.
What do you think? So when you talk about bringing sellers, what do you think a seller needs to look for? Especially in you know, even though you say today's market's hot, what do you think the seller needs to look for when they're looking for the right agent? What's the main? What do you think is a driving force behind getting value? Because
right, so there are two things that are key. Right, you want the agent himself, his knowledge and experience and negotiation skills, ability to navigate difficult situations, issues with the buildings department, title issues, things like that, and then their ability to market. Right, that is key. Their ability. What marketing capabilities do they have? What reach do they have? If I were interviewing agents, right? If I were interviewing, knowing what I know as a realtor, there are two things I would ask an agent when I conduct an interview. Question number one: how many homes have you sold in the last year? Show me. Oh, I sold 10, 15, 20 homes. All right, let me see. Did you sell $1 million homes? What type of properties did you sell? Similar to what I'm going to list. Number one. The second question: what are you going to do to market my property? How are you going to market my property to get maximum visibility, bring a lot of offers? Those are the two main things that I would ask. A lot of ask, what's your commission? Those are the other questions. That's negotiable anyway.
One thing that I do want to touch on, okay, is because I do this a lot with the agents here, is how much is invested in the process is really the key. Like how much investment is being. So my thing is that all commissions should be earned. So if you want to know what's happening with the house, and we do this a lot because you had, let's say, for instance, you had Overlook.
Oh, that's a beautiful.
I called it. We were making a joke of it. I called it the mullet house.
The mullet,
it was very small in the front and it was a mansion.
So the issue,
Let me just finish this one point so you could hit on that. But the big thing was that was a unique situation because traditional marketing from the standpoint of using photos, and we talked about it before we went on air, what's the number one thing people do when they're looking for a house? I ask several people, and the first thing is they say that they look through photos. And there's a big change coming to that. If you don't know,
they look at the photo.
They look at the first photo as being the main. And sometimes a house does not sell you can't sell a house on the first photo.
Do you think people really read the description?
Well, that's why we changed our marketing approach. They don't want to read the description. They want to watch a TV show.
When I look for,
and that's why we do the things that we do, is that they want to watch it from, they want the information. We're in a different era, and the era has changed.
I'll tell you, I never read, when I was looking for my own home, I never read the description. I looked at the photo, the front-facing photo, number one. If I liked that, then I continued.
So let's get into how that played into
the
mullet house.
Overlooked the issue with the property on Duncan Hills Colony. Beautiful home, but the front-facing photo showed a ranch. And for the price that we sold it at $1,600,000 plus 1,625, I believe. Yes. People would look at that and say, well, it's a ranch. I'm not paying. What's so special about a ranch? It's overpriced.
Yes. This is so key.
And we did the video tour with the drone. You flew the drone from the rear, which showed the views of the Verrazano Bridge, even Sandy Hook.
Yep. And
there were beautiful views because it was on top of a hill. And you flew in. That video captured you for the first I would say the first 7 seconds. Wow, where is that?
Right.
Staten Island, what a beautiful home.
The thing is, it was 4 stories in the rear.
It was 4 stories from the back, but only
1 story from the front. And and these are like little odd situations. We had that with another house in Brick, which had a pier, had a thing.
East Granada.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my thing is that, we've gone past the days of, I think, the static listing. And now with technology being what it is, and obviously it's advancing faster and faster for most people, is pay attention. So when you said earlier, when you look at sales, like you say, how many sales a person did is important. The thing is that they should also have a secondary piece of that, which is if they sold these houses, what did you do in these particular instances to sell this house? So are there examples set aside for me to look at to say, okay, I know you put in the MLS and I know you sold it. The thing is what did you do besides that to draw interest? That's the key.
The buyer was not a local buyer. He wasn't from the tri-state area.
And as
a matter of fact, he was from Boston. So he was transferring for a job here in Staten Island in the hospital. It's expanding, I believe, right? The Northwell.
He was replacing a head of a department.
So it was a client. We're looking at a $1.6 million client. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a local person. He wound up watching the video and fell in love with the house. Mm-hmm. It attracted the interest. So that type of marketing, right? Putting a bunch of pictures, throwing it on the MLS, I think it would have been overlooked. The name of the street was Overlooked, but
overlooked would have been overlooked.
No pun intended. It would have been overlooked. And that video captured the buyer, captured his attention.
Yeah.
He called his agent. I want to see this house.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. They're not necessarily they're going to come through. These people are definitely, and I think people miscalculate this, especially like on the sale by owner side. I say, well, how many people? When you're working with agents have their own loyalties to their buyers. So when it comes to buyers agents, you're going to assume that able buyers are going to definitely look at like they're gonna defer to their agent if it comes to the sale of a house. It doesn't matter what we do. But the important thing is, from the standpoint of a seller, is most people, and it escapes the market, and I see this happen a lot, is like we have a lot of transition people from New York to New Jersey. They don't understand everything from the perspective of where is this town, where is it located, and what is it to expect. Yes, you could look on a map and you could kind of poke around, but a lot of times we get caught up in the naming, like the town name. Well, so-and-so said that it's this, and so-and-so said that it's this town. And someone said,
I don't even know about Duncan. I'm from Brooklyn, but I live here in Staten Island. I never drove by Duncan Hills Colony. I didn't
No, I
realize
mean-
how beautiful
Yeah, and
the
that's
views.
Yeah, and
are
it
incredible.
matches much. It's part of Toad. It's part of Toad Hill. To be honest with you, it's part of the whole hill chain that's there. As you know, basically, almost like the valley inside the
It's
the
an
hill.
exclusive area.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That particular house sat at the
at the top of the hill.
cliffside. Yeah, so that was an interesting. And somebody said to me, well, they gave me comps, and they said, well, this house. So the thing about it too, and I want to make because buyers. We increasingly see buyers get frustrated about not getting their offers accepted, especially on houses where they feel like the price is high, they want to make an offer, and they don't get the seller to come down. And this is the kind of the frustration that exists in the marketplace right now. I deal with this a lot. Sellers who are absolutely refusing to get back to the buyer, or there's we kick the can down the road further. I'm going to get more. This type of idea that's necessarily going to happen is really driven on the idea that there's always something better down the road. And I would, I think when we get into these markets the way they are, you see what's happened, obviously, in Wall Street and things like that. I don't want to get into all that. But the general assumption is there's always something better down the road. And I do think that you have to consider everything for what it is in the moment. And then if things progress where you get an offer, like you had multiple offers, you're able to negotiate those offers out because you have multiple. And it doesn't mean because you accepted something, that means it's the end of the ball game for the listing.
Right.
That there's nobody else. Until you're in contract, they still came in because that's what happened in that instance.
Well, that's where we come into the three types of buyers that come in, right? Within the first 2 weeks.
2 days.
I would,
2 weeks, definitely. 2 days
but
now.
Within those first few, those are what I call the ready, willing, and able buyers.
RWAs.
They have been looking. They're qualified. The house came on the market. They're ready to go. They see it. They put an offer in.
Yeah.
Right? Then you have the second tier of buyers that come in a few weeks later. The ones that just started looking. Let me take a look at this. I don't know what I want. We just started looking. We're going to buy 6 months down the line. They start going out with the realtor.
And you have the hawks.
All right. And then we have the hawks, or I call them the vultures, looking for the wounded animal. So now when you're a month and a half, or 2 months in this market,
I think 2 months.
now they're waiting for a price reduction. They're just waiting. They know that house.
And not only waiting for the price reduction, they're waiting for them to strike the deal considerably lower.
Yeah, they're gonna.
That exists, even in this market.
the
People think that just because the market is a seller's market, meaning that we're going to set the bar as far as what are we going to get for a seller. And I think that's one of the, like I said, I have some reservation. The market, as healthy as it may seem in numbers, is not what I call, this is a low volume, low inventory market. It's not going to take much to push the scale one way or another, based on the fact that if we were talking about volume numbers at this level, you got to, and I did the stats with Kerry last week, and one of the interesting things was the volumes are not much different than they were in 2008 and 2009, as far as the number of houses selling.
But
so that means, but there are active buyers, but I would not rest on the fact that things can't, and I've said this before, it's not going to take much. You see in Florida now. Florida's it's one of the first places.
That market is.
Yeah, it's right. Because what happens is all it takes is a little bit of inventory peak. You don't have the volume of buyers that you did. And now with the change coming, you have to ask yourself, okay, there comes a point where you could get a little trapped up in the idea of there's something better down the road. And it doesn't take much of a snag in the
That's
economy.
what most sellers don't believe. That I always tell them the first offer is your best offer. And we've had this countless times. In fact, some lost money because, let me see if I could get a little more. And then they start dropping. Let's just say we had a house at $1.3 million. First offer comes in 125. Nice offer. Maybe I could get a little bit more. Offer after that, 1.2, $50,000 less. What happened now? They waited on. They sat on that original offer. The buyers walked. They found something else. That's it.
Go stale. And
it went stale. now we were, and then finally we wound up getting 1175.
Yeah.
So that's 75, and that was an offer at 2. So people, it's that greed. Oh, let me see if I can get a little more. Let me another $10,000 more. 20. And that was the buyer that came in, that was ready, willing, and able. They loved the house. They were looking, came on the market, ready to
The
go.
most serious buyers are going to be the ones who first see it.
Your serious buyers are the ones that you will meet in the first.
They'll make
week.
the offer quick.
And if they like the house, they're going to put the offer.
And I always said it's always the first person through the door to make the offer. In general, even in this market, I'm saying it doesn't happen better. Like it definitely happens more frequently. The biggest problem is like I call it the race to the race to the bottom. When the markets kind of switch up and you get a little bit of uncertainty, this is very, very critical time. And people think, of course, you as the agent are just trying to make the deal for them, and I get that whole thing. So a lot of people take what a lot of agents say.
Oh, they'll say, "Oh, it's too quick." Oh my God, you sold it in a day. Great, I'm very good at what I do.
Yeah, it's one of the things that come up. It does happen, and the question is, okay. I get that part of it. I always say in real estate, sometimes you pay for the failure more than you pay for the success. But the interesting thing about it is you have to take every offer at the given moment as this. We can take all the numbers and everything out of because there's an instance, right? Your instance with your house, right?
Yeah.
There's no comp that suggests you should be getting that much.
No,
but yet it did it on its own.
Well,
the market will set sets the price. That
is a key.
Demand.
What I wanted to touch on, what you started at the beginning of the video, was about pricing, right? And we get into. I think that the fact that the house was priced correctly is the reason that we were able to bid it up. So had I overpriced that property, it would have sat there and we would have negotiated downwards.
Yeah,
and I get a lot in the logic that I get from all the sellers. Sometimes they're a little hard-headed and they feel that they either watch TV shows about real estate and they say, okay, let's just say the house is worth $1 million. They'll want to list it for $1,080,000. I said, why do you want to go list it at $1,080,000? Oh, it gives me room for negotiation. I'll list it at $1,080,000 and then someone will offer me $1 million and then I'll take it. Well, it doesn't work that way because when you overprice the property, you will get no showings. So there is no negotiation. There are no offers, and the house will sit there. And the biggest mistake that you will make as a seller is overprice your house. Some of the agents don't want to have that uncomfortable conversation with the seller. We walk away from listings. If we know that we can't deliver, if I know that a house is worth $1 million, and you want to list it for $1.2 million, I am not going to waste your time or my time and create damage to the property.
Well, that's why when I talk about the investment side of the business, right?
Right.
It costs us a considerable amount of money to put a house on the market.
Unfortunately, unless it sells, we're on the hook for our investment.
Yes, and that's why I say to people, like, invested in the process is key to knowing like whether they really care about selling that. Open houses are nice, but at the end of the day, if it's as a time quotient, obviously it's not cheap to waste time, but it definitely happens. It's a lot easier to waste it than money. But the big thing is exposure to the marketplace. You definitely want to see how much traction. And I think overall, and it's changing the game. I think I checked out Google today. Google announced their first
AI.
So, and it's an interesting take now. Like, I mean, when I started, I remember there was SEO and things like that. It's revert now. Google is working with its AI search, which is a different dynamic they've added. So one of the things that's interesting is that video is now becoming a bigger part of the search complex than it ever has in the past. So meaning that the resources that AI is pulling from and sourcing is more, and the reason for it is that they cite sources obviously for this information. So now like cite sources, meaning that if they saw, and they're going to primarily use video, because one of the things that has changed over time, if you haven't noticed, is TikTok and Facebook and YouTube, video. Is that when people really query questions, they like to watch videos about what they're interested in.
Yes.
Okay. Versus
even I've seen
you don't
videos,
want to read the tech. No, you could go on a website, you could read the whole entire text.
I've seen videos of people opening toys.
Yeah, but I mean,
unpacking. Right. What is it? Unboxing videos.
Unboxing videos.
And people love watch. People don't want to read about the new toy. That they want to see somebody unbox it. They want to watch a video about it. It's totally different.
You know, you think about how car commercials work, right? Like how all the auto industry or how everything else works. You just go to like TikTok and understand that there's what I call the passive selling, which is making the buyer find the house, or the more aggressive selling, which is making is actually reaching an audience for the particular buyer that would probably miss it otherwise.
I don't think an open house would have attracted the gentleman from Boston.
You can't.
I don't think he.
That's the beauty of YouTube, right?
That's the beauty of the video. We can reach worldwide. We can reach somebody across the world.
We have
in other countries. In Egypt.
Yeah, we got to Egypt.
We've actually went cross country. We had people from California.
Yes.
That's
several.
And they became our clients. They purchased in New Jersey, and they were California clients.
Yeah.
The other topic I want to touch, we were talking about cash, and I wanted to dispel the myth about, and I get this question all the time from
the bag at the front door.
I don't know where this myth came from, that people show up at your door, they knock on the door, and they have a bag full of cash. It is not true. Okay? When they say it's a cash offer, it's not some guy showing up with a duffel bag full of money. Like in the old movies.
But just so you know.
It needs to be recorded.
I think there's an agent, I believe it was Alana, had a buyer.
I had one guy like that.
Who thought he could bring a duffel bag.
Well, actually, I did have a client like that.
He thought you could bring a duffel bag.
To the closing, though.
To that.
And he said no.
How is this done? Yeah, transferring, unless you have
No, I thought it was a joke. I had the guy say to me, I'm going to pay cash. I said, all right, what do you mean? He says, cash. All right, I was going to bring a bank check. You have cash. No. He goes, cash. I mean, are you going to bring it? Yeah. I said, no attorney is going to close on a deal like that, right? You need a bank check. It has to be a certified bank check. It's going to be a cash offer, meaning you have the amount in your bank account,
right?
But you're not going to show up with a bag. I don't think anybody's going to ring your doorbell and plop a bag of cash right in your front door. Hey, I'm going to buy the house right now.
Your duffel bag.
It needs to be recorded, right? It's a deed. There's a lot of
and i.e. the U.S. government doesn't like.
No, that's money laundering.
Hundreds and thousands of dollars being transferred.
No, not like
without somebody knowing it.
There needs to be a record of that.
Yeah, I mean that's just we do what we call a HUD, right?
So people always say to me,
anything that's transferred. So guys out there, there's a HUD, meaning a housing and
urban development, right? And it gives you the closing papers, closing documents.
It tells you exactly how much is being
what it's sold for.
And don't think that if it's out of line. That, all of a sudden they see like $100,000, check for a house and someone doesn't say, oh, geez, I don't know. Maybe this is something we need to look into, that it can't be checked into in that fashion. But not to say I've seen that, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, cash. I get that. Oh, you think someone's going to come in with a bag of cash? No.
The new thing is Bitcoin.
There were transactions that were offered.
Yeah, the people are trying to transfer. If you're for sale by owners out there, the sale by owners have a tough streak of luck. Is that they really don't know who the heck they're dealing with, and a lot of times you get these people who A, they give crazy offers. B, like,
Well,
they give these crazy terms. We had a client that was really, we see this a lot. There's a lot of scam stuff out there. We were dealing with one. It did close, but unfortunately, I think it closed for a lot less than it should have. Was they did contract swaps, meaning a lot of these, like you see those things on poles. We buy homes.
I see it. I see them around the block from my house now.
We buy homes.
We'll sell your house.
There's two reasons for that. That's nuts. First of all, if you call them that stuff, and you don't know what kind of information you're giving, because we had. I mean, there's been a couple of fraud incidents. We had an incident down in Seaside Heights where the property was actually owned by somebody else, but they had their license, they had a driver's license. We wanted to verify. It was very difficult to verify. He was listing the property, and it seemed like he was in a rush. It came from an international phone number. Things just didn't
on
check out.
WhatsApp. I've seen.
But we said, look, it's very hard to make. We're going to, take a look at it. When you call these numbers that are on the side of a road, you got to think about what you're doing, because it may seem. And then it's the other thing. It's real estate people soliciting leads.
That's I played around with it. I went along with it for fun, and I wanted to see.
Oh, you did?
When the expert called me, I said, you know what? Let me play the game. Oh, we're interested in buying your house. We're going to give you a cash offer. How much do you think your home is worth? I said, well, I have no idea. I never put my home up for sale. I don't know. Why don't you tell me? And the lady, now I know how to do comps. I'm a realtor. I know what my house is worth to the penny. So she says, oh, I'm going to do a comp right now for your house based on your neighborhood. Your house is worth, let's just say a number, I don't know, $800,000, right? When the house is worth, let's just say, $1 million. So right then and there, the expert that was comping my property was already coming in at least $200,000. It wasn't a realtor, by the way, that I was speaking to on the phone. It was
not yet.
It was
not yet.
And then they could forward that information.
What they do with the information secondary.
What they do with the information, I don't know who they sell it to. But when they're offering you, I'll buy your house cash, I would never.
The most money you're going to get for a house, I don't care what it is putting it to market. More eyes and visibility your house has, I don't care. It's like
How many times did we take a for sale by owner and we wound up getting it for above the list price that the homeowner had it for?
Yeah, it happens
because of the marketing that we did. And there were so many times where the seller made their number and it even covered the commission on top. And they still
I think I'm going to tell you off the bat, we've done some studies here suggesting about how a house should be marketed. And it's, one of the things that we've heavily invested in is making sure that it's one thing to have video, it's another thing to have a funnel, a channel.
We have our own digital.
So my thing is we channel in, so through our multiple channels that we've built over time, is that we're actually able to, so what happens is the building effect, right? So if you go on any of our channels, I've seen people on Facebook Live, you can go through Facebook, you're going to see 60,000 posts of a different thing. The idea is that by keeping people engaged in what we're doing, definitely keeps them involved in the process of what. So there is what we can consider, it's like, if you don't have anything for people to watch, right? Like a TV channel, right? If you don't have people entertained to some degree and they're coming back, you will lose them. And what we've noticed over time is how do we keep obviously there's some stuff in there that's really cool and stuff
also
like that.
The reach.
But what it does is creates a consistent draw. So meaning that when people you watch a YouTube channel, right, they know what to expect out of the channel. And the thing is that sometimes it's, sometimes the algorithms will help, but I think the key thing is how long you can keep engagements up, so it works in the seller's benefit. Because I do think it's key, especially with the AI technology that's happening today. Well, you're being referred. Your videos are now preferred as part of the search result than ever before. And I could give you examples that I played around with it today. That seems to be the direction that these big companies.
That's the future.
So even from the Zillow perspective, some of these, I read a report today that said the latest changes in Google has affected Zillow's reach. I'm speculating here. I saw it in a couple of instances where like these portal sites that have portals once before are losing traction because the search results. And I talked to Jerry.
It's video now.
It's video, and then what they're doing is they're using AI to be instead of the search agent for them. So in other words, it's kind of transformed over. So like if you have ChatGPT on your phone now, it conducts web searches.
Yes.
And it kind of filters through. And one of the preferences it makes is it knows people like content, not from they don't want to see letters and numbers anymore. They want to see what it is you're presenting. And I think that's key. Moving forward into this new era, we're still making consistent investments into making that sure we capture that audience. But it's becoming more critical to get that level of viewership because, like I said, a change to the Google algorithm. The reason why Zillow is popular for the most part is because the Zillow search result. We've kind of taken our foot off of that a little bit because the search results were a thing from maybe the 2000 to 2000.
Those are database searches.
Yeah, the database searches and like where you're ranking on the page. It's no longer like that. I think social media and media as a general is playing more a role in the success and failure of a house sale than probably at any point in history. And I do think that that's key and pivotal to the whole entire process of where we're going to go in terms of like the housing market moving forward. And I do think that one of the key aspects of building, actually what we're doing here, is making sure you agents, and one of the things that I found difficult, and I'm going to put it out there, is that you have to manage a business, never mind manage social media infrastructure. And not everybody's capable of managing a social media infrastructure.
No, that's a separate job in itself.
Yes.
Editing,
and that's why we're kind of two faceted.
I'm busy
selling,
negotiating with the client to sell the house. The marketing department, they're the best at what they do,
right?
And I love them. They're awesome. They make my job a lot easier.
Well, I think it keeps you focused.
So I can focus on
the client.
The real estate, and the marketing, let the marketing experts do their job. They're the best at it.
Yeah,
the photographer, I'm a horrible photographer, for example. You don't want me taking photos of your house. You want the professional to do it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things. And then the relationship between like everybody giving the same service quotient here. Right, so everybody basically gets the same level of service.
Streamlined, yes.
So what we try to do is we actually accomplish this. I think that in the future of brokerages in general is that, and I know people like it's changing, and I do think that infrastructurally, I think the future is that you have to have a combination of two things going on, and that's. I hate to say we're already past the point where that's actually maybe even attainable in some instances because it's become so competitive already in that space that getting a foothold in that space is, and you know what? I see a lot of stuff being sold out there for people who have the time. Like you don't have the time. I don't care what it is, to be a social media influencer and be an effective real estate agent to the degree that you gain a sense of plurality amongst your crowd that's going to make sense. You could spend hours with clients unless you want to make it a 24/7 gig that you're doing these two things. And it's becoming very apparent that in the struggles of agents that I hear, it's like, okay, they're starting from scratch, right? You say to me, okay, well, I got a few hundred followers and yeah, okay, well, that's great. But the thing is, how do I gain, a critical mass is really the key, and that is only attainable through time and a whole substantial amount of effort and capital dollars being spent to make sure that actually happens. But for agents, it's so important now as the dynamics change for the business from the business aspect. It's that you're actually have a synergistic strategy or partnership that helps facilitate that while it keeps you concentrated. Now, obviously there's costs associated with doing all this stuff. So But I find that's, the most cost-effective thing for agents is making sure that parts of their business is well taken care of. You don't have to worry when you're at a different appointment that your house isn't being marketed because you didn't get home to do it.
The ultimate beneficiary here is.
I mean, that's the key, right?
Right.
So you're not saying to me, "Oh, geez, hey, we're going to get It's all being kind of handled and done in the.
I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
I don't have to. The marketing.
So you could focus on what you have to
Again, I
focus
have to
on.
do the negotiations. Stick to the.
Yeah, and that's
Real
key.
estate.
I do think that that's the key. I think somebody left a comment.
And I want to touch like our reach. Here's another thing
Just
that
for
helps.
reach, I wanted to give you this one stat. So the Facebook crowd out there who's
Yes.
watching,
Yeah.
we're coming close to 250,000 views a month
On our
Facebook.
channel?
On Facebook.
Oh, wow, Facebook. Okay.
On Facebook now.
Not the YouTube channel. YouTube license too. How am I competing now in the New Jersey market? And the demographics are changing. People from Brooklyn are coming to Staten Island,
Or they're going straight over.
and
to
Staten
New York.
Island, or they're going straight over to Jersey. But Staten Island's going to Jersey, and Jersey's going to Florida. And what happens is, how am I able? And I've been beating the New Jersey realtors because I have an advantage over them. That they're the local agent and they're the local expert. And here I come from Staten Island. I'm 60 miles south, and I go there and I sell the house for above asking price. So the benefit that I have is that I bring the New York clientele into the New Jersey market, because when we list,
We bring the California clientele.
but I list also, but I belong to multiple MLSs.
Yeah.
So I belong to the New Jersey MLS. I belong to the New York MLS. So we'll list it in the New York MLS. We'll also list it in the New Jersey MLS. That's being dual licensed has given me an advantage in a market that I could be 60 miles away from here, and I can be the local expert.
Yeah, I mean the advances now are so profound that I do think that that's changing the game, and that's really something that'll play out over the next year and a half, 2 years as systems advance themselves. And I can't tell you how impactful some of the things that have come out today. I mean, obviously, you know me, I fully utilize every technical advantage possible.
You love technology. I mean, you built your own drone back in.
Yeah, build my own
Before they were a
drone,
thing. Now
websites, whatever it was. I mean, but the big thing is that ensuring, and I think you've done a very good job at that throughout the course of the time you've been here, which has been a fantastic run, even in a challenging market, right? You've done well.
I've been in every. Yeah. I got baptized by fire with the COVID market and.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
but it was a rough. Believe it or not, before the
last few years in real estate have been rough.
I'll tell you, if you remember when you kind of first came into the company,
this houses
there's a lot of expired listings.
There were
remember?
a lot more, so they took longer to sell.
Yes.
And what I noticed back then,
there was a lot of them.
Yes.
Remember how many?
Every day. Now it's
it used to be one of the things. It's like, okay, maybe we change the dynamic here. It used to be a lot. I mean, we used to literally.
No, that was, and I think the reason, my opinion on that, why we don't have such high inventory, and I don't blame a lot of the sellers are sitting on 3% mortgages, 3.5%, 2.5%.
Yeah,
they're not in a rush to sell and take out a new mortgage at the current rates, which is double, right? 6%.
Look where they go. Not anymore. They're down
so
today.
I think that, are we touching 5 yet? Because we're getting very close.
Do think
and I think the floodgates will open once we hit the 5%.
Everybody's freaked out about the market, but I think it's a temporary. It's a technical. People like putting all this.
I was watching the market. It looked like a, the heartbeat when you're in the hospital, the heart monitor machine. It was. I was just having.
It's a technical.
I got to.
I mean, everybody talks about what it is, and they either say markets move on technical indicators. I could have told you the market was far exceeding its overextended status, and that's what happens when it's exuberant markets. If you look at the last 15 years, I mean, the scary part is that it's gone up so much in the last 10 years. There's a level of expectation now that the market they're going to return. Do people just believe that? if I put my money, there's people literally who are very little banked. They're more stockholder than saving.
Sure.
So if you look at someone's asset portfolio now, very little of what, at least the average Joe, what we call the under, because they did an interesting statistic, right? 85% of all the stocks are owned by,
I think 12%.
Yeah,
it's a small number. Yes. So it's basically billionaires.
So could you imagine 85% of the stock? The rest is left. Then there's another tiered class, which is just a few, maybe about another 15%, not
Right.
even,
But
has owned small degree of stock. And, they talk about retail. Retail is, that's why these sell. I always find
the
it to be
real
interesting.
estate. Always busy.
Yeah, that's all right. I had to take something, take a quick call, but we're gonna have to call it at that. So we're pretty much, not to be abrupt. It's a good topic. I think you touched on everything you wanted. Was there anything else you wanted?
No, we touched on
So tell us about your pins quickly.
the pins.
That's the top one is.
These are Masonic.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Pins.
You're a Mason.
Masonic symbols.
Okay. You just, people are always going to say, what's the pin over there? So we figured we just give a little dose of what the pin is. But anyway, have a great night. It is Monday. It is kind of rainy and stinky out.
Gloomy. The whole week's gonna be like this.
But hopefully we'll see you.
If anyone has
very
any
soon.
questions about real estate, you want to sit down, have a cup of coffee, no obligation. Reach out to us. I love talking real estate. There's no obligation. You want to know, you're curious about what your home is worth.
You're going to get the best. That's
yes,
it.
you are.
It's the end of the
I
day.
always tell them,
The best.
what is the advantage of hiring me as your realtor? You get me as your realtor.
That's right. And, like I said, it's one of the biggest things. Let's go see what the.
What's what?
I want to see. There was a comment there. I just want to see.
If they have, I wish we could take live a question or two while we're live. Sometimes, and I would love to answer. I love talking real estate.
There is questions
It's
here.
funny. People stop me all the time if I go get a haircut.
If you give the best mark and look to buy, so they call the best. Okay, that's Ellie,
What'd she say?
top tier. So there you go.
Oh, Ellie, yes. Ellie is phenomenal.
There you go.
I love working with Ellie. She's
So-
one of our she's our mortgage expert.
Yes. So again, guys, you have a question? Please feel free to ask. The video will be up on YouTube, obviously, at some point in the future. But if you have a question and it's definitely going to be cycling through the rounds here, you could always reverse and go backwards, and you can watch some of the video again. At least on YouTube. TikTok, sorry guys, you're out of luck. Once we end this,
That's it.
weird.
Finito.
Done. You have to go to the other platforms to go see the whole thing. But have a great night, guys.
Have a good night, everybody.
And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great night.